My journey with coffee revealed a heartbreaking truth that transformed my spirit forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The aroma clung to the air, rich and intoxicating, swirling around me like a comforting blanket. I was desperate for that first sip, that jolt of energy that promised to kickstart my day. But that morning, the coffee was more than just a drink. It was a signal, a warning that as I stood in my tiny kitchen, the sun creeping through the blinds, casting stripes of light on the counter, I felt a tension gnawing at my gut, my heart racing in a frantic rhythm. I was waiting for a sign that everything would be okay. My hands trembled as I poured the dark liquid into my favorite chipped mug. Times like this, I clung to my little rituals. They brought comfort. But comfort is a fragile thing. Lila, my bright-eyed sister, burst through the door, braids bouncing, her laughter like chimes in the breeze. I had always envied her spirit. She was the sunlight on my gloomiest days. "Hey, what's brewing?" she asked, leaning against the counter, her smile infectious. Little did we know, our lives were about to brew something much darker. That I should have noticed the way her eyes flickered, the unease in her bounce, but I was too wrapped up in my own chaos. I poured her a cup, the warmth seeping through ceramic to meet her hands. Just coffee. But it was more than that. It was the last normal moment we'd share before everything spiraled. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences began. Friends turned secretive. Whispers filled the air like shadows. One evening, I heard Lila on the phone, her voice low, tone heavy. She was hiding something. I could feel it. The coffee was doing its magic, brewing up fears I couldn't ignore. I sensed a storm brewing, and I was helpless to stop it. The night my heart shattered, the world felt still. Lila burst into my room, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her breaths came in gasps. "I have to tell you something," she cried, the weight of her words crashing over me. Everything had changed, and in an instant, my universe tilted. "Just say it," I pleaded, my voice raw, my heart racing like a runaway train. The coffee mug slipped through my fingers, crashing on the floor, shattering into 1,000 shards. I barely noticed the pain in my feet as I stood frozen, waiting for the truth to unfold. "I'm sick, and it's worse than I thought." Time slowed. My heart dropped. A lump formed in my throat. The smell of the coffee lingered, bitter now, a cruel reminder of what was brewing beneath the surface of our lives. Suddenly, I was drowning in confusion, fear clawing at my chest. What did this mean for us? For her? For our family? And just like that, the world around me dimmed, the shadows deepening. I could barely process what was happening. The silence thrummed like an unwelcoming heartbeat. With each passing second, I held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, everything would turn out okay. But what if it didn't? What else was hidden behind the masks we wore? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like a blur, a heavy haze hanging over our home. I tried pushing through the fog to gather the scattered pieces of my life, but every time I reached for something familiar, a coffee cup, a favorite book, the sunlight streaming in through the window, I was reminded of the void opening in my heart. Lilith's confession clung to me like an unbearable weight. Each morning, when the sun roused from its slumber, I found myself staring at the coffee pot, contemplating what it meant to brew a cup of hope in a world tainted with fear. I thought about the doctor's appointments that awaited us, the long, murky roads of treatment and diagnosis. Would her laughter ever return? Would I ever have the privilege of seeing her free and wild again? The kitchen became our battlefield. I prepared mugs of coffee with shaking hands, pouring my love into every cup, but even the rich aroma could not mask the underlying tension thickening in the air. Lila sat across from me, her fingers tapping nervously against the table as silence enveloped us. How could I bridge the chasm that stretched between her brave face and my worried heart? One afternoon, I noticed her staring blankly out the window, sunlight painting her face in tender hues. She seemed so lost, and it broke me. I placed a gentle hand on hers. "Hey," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You want to talk about it?" She turned to me, her normally bright eyes dimmed. "What's there to say?" She responded softly. It's too much. I don't even know where to begin." My heart ached as I grappled for the right words, wishing desperately to chase away the shadows cloaking her spirit. "That I am here," I said with a catch in my breath. "He'll always be here. We can figure this out together. You don't have to bear it alone." I squeezed her fingers gently, trying to weave warmth into the moment. "Dio, you think it's okay to be scared?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "I feel like I should be strong, but inside I just want to hide." "Of course, it's okay to be scared," I replied, emotion thickening my throat. "It's brave to admit it. You don't have to put on a brave face for me." Tears brimmed in her eyes, and I could see the dam she had built around her emotions starting to crack. "What if I'm not strong enough?" she said, her voice breaking. "What if everything changes?" Those two questions echoed in my mind, reverberating in the silence that followed. I looked out the window, feeling the weight of our shared fears. The world felt suddenly large and unkind. Each day became an all-consuming cycle of uncertainty. I tried to fill our home with small moments of sunshine, playing music we loved, sharing silly jokes that once made us laugh until we cried. But slowly, Lila retreated further into herself, leaving me to face the growing shadows alone. One evening, as I brewed another pot of coffee, I found a note tucked beneath the coffee machine. "For when you need a reminder," it read in Lilith's neat handwriting. I unfolded the note to find the words, "You're not alone. We have each other." Tears streamed down my face as I clutched the note to my chest. Yet as comforting as her words were, they rang hollow against the reality we faced. Could love be enough to fight against something so daunting? The next morning, as I flipped open the local newspaper, a headline caught my eye: community fundraiser for local families facing illness. My heart sank and leapt at once. An idea flickered to life amidst my despair. What if we could rally the community? What if we could create something good out of this pain? I rushed to Lila, who was sitting cross-legged on the couch, lost in her thoughts. "Lila," I exclaimed, my voice brightening with determination. "What if we organized a fundraiser? Something to support families like us?" Her eyes widened. I could see her brain whirring, considering the prospect. But just as quickly, doubt clouded her expression. "What if we fail? What if it seems overdramatic?" "Then we will have tried," I insisted. "We can invite people to join us, share our story. We could bring a little light into this darkness." As I spoke, I sensed a flicker of hope igniting within her. "Maybe," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, but a faint smile began to tug at her lips. We began mapping out ideas together, the energy in the room shifting, loosening the grip of despair that had threatened to consume us. We spent hours planning, laughing at silly sketches of fundraising events, and brainstorming community engagement. For the first time since her diagnosis, I saw a glimmer of the sister I had always loved. Her spirit was there, twinkling, like stars breaking through a storm. Yet before I could fully grasp the silver lining of our new venture, the phone buzzed on the table, jolting me from my thoughts. I glanced at the screen, and my heart plummeted. It was the hospital calling. The room felt as if it had been plunged into stillness, the air thick with what could only be described as impending dread. I stared at the phone, its screen lighting up like a whisper of fate, urging me to answer. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs as if it were trying to flee. "Lila," I called softly, my voice wavering. She looked up, eyes still filled with the soft glow of creativity and hope we had just kindled. But the moment I mentioned the call, the brightness dimmed, shadows creeping back into her gaze. She knew with shaky hands. I picked up the phone and pressed it to my ear, pinching my eyes closed as if squeezing my thoughts would ward off any bad news. The nurse's voice, calm yet firm, flooded through the receiver, each word like a drop of cold water splashing against my already fragile spirit. We have some additional results regarding Lilith's tests, and it's important that you both come in as soon as possible. A chill rushed down my spine, the weight of her words urging my breath to hitch in my throat. Is it bad? I managed to utter, the question clawing at the edges of my consciousness. Please, just come in, she replied, and the line went dead, leaving an echoing silence that screamed volumes. I set the phone down, finding Lila looking at me with anxious eyes, those familiar blue depths now clouded with worry. What did they say? She asked, her voice a tremor that mirrored my own shaking resolve. I don't know yet. We need to go to the hospital, I confessed, my own heart heavy with the weight of the unknown. Lila inhaled sharply. Her gaze darted away, fixating instead on the coffee table as if the wooden grain could provide solace. Do you think it's going to be bad? She whispered, every syllable laced with fear. I don't know, I replied, embracing her hand tightly, willing the warmth of my palm to seep into her. But we'll face it together, no matter what. A fragile nod was her only response, but I could see the turmoil raging beneath the surface. We rushed out of the house, the comforting confines of our home turning suffocating, its warmth swallowed by our growing dread. As we drove to the hospital, each block felt like a step through a maze of uncertainty. The scenery blurred by in a wash of greens and browns, but all I could see was the white facade of the hospital building drawing closer, an ominous figure silhouetted against the afternoon sun. When we entered the sterile waiting room, the fluorescent lights felt harsh, illuminating the anxious faces around us. I took Lilith's hand, her palm sweaty against mine. It was both a lifeline and a tether, anchoring us to one another amidst the chaos that had suddenly consumed our lives. Just breathe, I whispered, though I could feel my own breath quickening, fear twisting my gut in knots. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor finally emerged from the back room. Lilith's body tensed beside me, and I could feel the unease vibrate between us like a taut string ready to snap. Lila, thank you for waiting, she began, her voice measured but filled with a softness that felt layered with an unsaid heaviness. I could tell that beneath her professional demeanor, she carried the burden of delivering news that would change everything. Your results came back, and I want to discuss them with you, she said, glancing down at her chart. It's important that you understand the context of what we're seeing. Lila barely nodded, fixating on the doctor as if she could unravel the meaning behind each pause and inflection. I squeezed her hand again, reminding her of my presence, grounding her amidst a storm that promised to shake us to our core. As the doctor began to explain the findings, words like progression and treatment options floated through the air, heavy and suffocating. The room shrank around us, the implications of every syllable stirring a whirlwind of despair. My mind raced to process it all, but it felt as though my heart were dragging through molasses, slow and weighed down by the reality of what was unfolding before us. Somewhere in the midst of the doctor's explanation, I felt Lilith's grip slacken around my hand. Each word sounded more distant, her spirit waning like a flickering candle in the wind. It was tangible, the creeping notion that life as we knew it might irreversibly shift beneath our feet. And then came the bombshell, a revelation that sank like a stone in the pit of my stomach. Your condition is now classified as. The doctor hesitated, her voice thickening with each syllable advanced. We need to discuss a more aggressive treatment plan immediately. Time stood still. The world outside continued on. Vehicles zipped past, oblivious to the earthquake of emotions surging within our small universe. Lilith's face turned ashen, and I felt the conscience of hope rip itself away from my chest. What had we begun to build moments of light for if darkness was now closing in fast? I reached for Lilith's face, cupping her cheek, willing her to hold on to something with me. We can do this, I whispered, forcing my voice to remain steady. We'll fight this together. Yet inside, I felt the tremors of despair quaking through my spirit, the anchor of all my promises threatening to give way as we walked back into the waiting room. I took one last glance at the doctor, who seemed to bear the weight of 1,000 losses. In her eyes, I found a flicker of understanding, a shared burden, a silent gratitude for confronting truths we'd have rather hidden. When we stepped outside, the air felt oppressive, heavy with the impending storm clouds swirling above us. A distant rumble of thunder resonated, mirroring the turmoil in my heart. "Hey, look," Lila said suddenly, her voice a weak attempt at defiance against the storm. She pointed toward a small flower that had somehow erupted through a crack in the concrete, a solitary glimpse of beauty amidst the fading light of day. "Even in the shadows, there's still light," I murmured, hoping to plant a seed of comfort. Yet just as Lila turned to me, a sense of foreboding settled deep within. The call of the universe felt palpable, as if it was unraveling a new chapter to our story, a moment that would perhaps lead us down a path we could neither anticipate nor escape. As we headed towards the car, Lila's phone buzzed again, this time vibrating with urgency. Before she could look, I caught a glimpse of the screen, an unknown number. Something in my gut twisted sharply. "Wait, Lila," I said, just as her fingers closed around the device. But it was already too late. A sense of foreboding loomed, and I felt something primal scream within me that whatever awaited her on the other side of that call would change everything once more. The hospital loomed large behind us as we stumbled towards the car, the doors still heavy with the weight of the news. I could feel the desperation clinging to the air around us, heavy as a shroud. Lila halted in her tracks, her phone poised between us, oblivious to the chaos swirling in her mind. "Just a second," I urged, but her eyes were locked on the screen, wide with confusion. "It's probably just a wrong number." But she couldn't seem to shake off the allure of the unknown. "It could be important," she murmured, and I saw the deep-seated curiosity fighting against her fear. With a shaky breath, she pressed the answer button, the tone of her heartbeat quickening with anticipation. "Hello?" she said, her voice soft but trembling, almost as if she was afraid of what might respond. There was a long pause, a silence that felt like something was slithering through the air, waiting to strike. Just when I thought she might hang up, a voice broke through, sharp and unexpected. "Lila, this is Greg. I don't know how to say this." I could see Lila's eyes widen, her breath hitting, the color draining from her cheeks. I had no connection to this Greg, but I could feel the tension in her posture tighten palpably, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of his existence began to pull her down. "Greg?" she responded, incredulity lacing her tone. Why are you calling me now? After all this time?" The bitterness was raw, jagged around the edges, a stark reminder of history that was better left untouched. "Please, Lila, listen. It's important. Can we meet?" He hesitated, perhaps sensing the tide of emotions cascading in waves on her end. "I have something you need to know." That I felt an unsettling mix of feelings twisting in my gut. Who was this Greg? What could he possibly need to say at such a fragile moment in her life? My instincts urged me to intervene, to tell her to hang up, to protect her from whatever storm this man heralded. "Lila," I said softly, but she shook her head, her eyes still locked onto the device as if facing off against an unseen adversary. "Just a minute," she replied, a hint of defiance breaking through her fear. "What do you need to tell me?" As Greg spoke, I caught bits and pieces of their conversation, fragments of a shared history that spoke of a past life intermixed with affection and familiarity. Every syllable dripped with an intensity that I could feel, creeping its way into my heart, igniting a swell of anxiety that left no room for comfort. "It's about your family, about something you've always deserved to know." I didn't want to be the one to tell you. "Stop," Lila interrupted, tight-lipped, her eyes suddenly glistening as unshed tears threatened to fall. "You don't get to just waltz back into my life now, not like this." The air between us thickened, the unrelenting shadows growing darker as her voice carried a fragile rage I hadn't heard before. It felt unsettlingly misplaced. She had so much upon her plate already. Please just meet me," Greg implored, desperation lacing his words. "I know you're going through so much, and I regret everything, but I swear you need to hear this." She looked at me, torn between the anguish of our current battle and the intrusions of an old fight that had somehow resurrected itself in the most cruel of ways. And then it happened. The darkness in her gaze matched my own, tethering us to a crossroads where hope brushed elbows with despair. "I can't do this right now," she whispered, her voice wavering. I felt my heart constrict, wanting to be her fortress, wanting to pull her away from any ghosts of her past. "I think you have to," I murmured, urgency threading through my tone. "This might affect everything, Lila. We're already fighting to keep hope alive." She exhaled, a sound like surrender escaping her lips. The tightness in her grip on the phone lessened, and she closed her eyes, as if the very act of shutting herself off from the chaos could isolate the pain for just a moment longer. Finally, she sighed, the decision reversing the tide of tension pooling around us. "Fine. I'll meet you, but I swear, Greg, if this is nothing, I will never speak to you again." "Just say when and where," he replied, his voice a mixture of relief and concern. Lila hung up and slowly turned to me, her expression hauntingly distant. I don't know if I can face him, especially now. It was always easier to pretend that part of my past didn't exist. "Maybe he holds a truth that could change everything for us," I suggested gently, forcing my trepidation aside. "Or he may just complicate things more that I can't keep finding answers when I'm still fighting for every breath." Lila whispered, her face falling. "What if he tells me something worse? What if it means there's no way out of this?" "Together," I said, clenching her hands tighter in mine. "Whatever comes, we choose to face it together. You're not alone. You never will be." Moments stretched into eternity as she searched my eyes, the vulnerability in hers cutting deeper than I had anticipated. And just then, an echo of thunder crashed from the distance, shaking the ground beneath us. It felt like an omen, a sign that fate had intertwined our paths irrevocably with whatever revelation Greg would bring. As we sat quietly in the car, surrounded by the mundane sounds of the world continuing on without us, a sudden thought crossed my mind. What hidden truths rattled beneath the surface of life that we had yet to confront? But before we could speak again, Lila's phone chimed with another message. It was from Greg. "You're not ready for this, but I need you to know about your family. It's bigger than any of us could ever imagine." Her eyes widened in fear and disbelief, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat. Whatever came next promised to unravel everything we had built, threatening to expose fractures we had hoped would never resurface. The rain poured down in cascading torrents, each drop a reminder of the darkness that seemed to grow deeper in Lila's heart with each pulse of the storm. She sat stiff in the passenger seat, her hands gripped tightly around the edge of her knees, and I could see the tension radiating off her. I wanted nothing more than to pull her to me and shield her from the world, but I knew that even my embrace couldn't ease the turmoil brewing within her. "Maybe we shouldn't meet him," I ventured softly, trying to gauge her emotions. The thought of facing Greg felt like a blade pressing gently against my chest, the pain almost unbearable. I wanted to protect her, but the uncertainty of what Greg would reveal gnawed at me. Lila shook her head, refusing to meet my eyes. "I have to know, don't I? If there's even the slightest chance that what he has is important," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor that underscored it. "But I don't know how to face him, especially after everything. It's like him being pulled back into that darkness again." "Then let's fight it together," I replied, reaching out for her hand. I tucked my fingers between hers, the warmth of our connection, a temporary balm against the cold fear swirling inside the car. "We will take it one step at a time together." Lila finally turned to me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "What if I find out something that changes everything?" I thought I was finally on the verge of healing, but maybe this is just another layer of pain waiting to be uncovered. "I can't promise you that it will be easy," I said, my voice cracking under the weight of her fears. "But what I can offer you is my hand to hold. You don't have to do this alone." A few fleeting moments stretched out like fragile threads, their weight hanging between us. And then, as if sensing an unseen threat, Lila suddenly retreated into herself, closing off like a fragile flower caught in the storm. The tablet of her confidence unspooled, revealing the raw edges of her vulnerability. The downpour intensified, resonating with the storm inside her. "I just wanted a normal life," she whispered, her voice barely a breath in the cacophony of rain. just to heal from my past, to be able to accept what has happened. The thought of her past felt like a curse hanging heavy in the air. I wanted so desperately to take her pain and bear it myself, but knew it wasn't mine to carry. You will get through this, I reassured her. You're stronger than you think. I've seen you fight. You won't turn back now. Do you really believe that? She challenged, gripping tighter to my hand, her knuckles paling against the storm cloud gray of the car's interior. I know it, I answered honestly. You've already come so far, Lila. Whatever Greg might tell you is just one part of your journey. You've already faced demons far worse and you're still here. Before she could respond, her phone chimed, agarine a stark intrusion in the space we had created. She flinched, a visible shudder running through her. The text from Greg displayed on the screen. I'm waiting. Please don't take too long to decide. Each word felt like an imperative suffocation around her heart. Shall we go? I asked gently, knowing this moment of decision would define everything to come. Lila glanced at me, the conflict etched deep across her face. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she said, her voice trembling. But in her eyes, there was a fight, something simmering beneath the surface despite her fear. Trust yourself, I murmured, squeezing her hand once more. Remember, you're only meeting him. You can walk away anytime. The words hung in the air, an offer but also a promise of safety. As I turned the key in the ignition, the engine purred back to life, and I caught the hint of resolve blossom in Lilith's gaze, a small flicker of light pushing its way through the encroaching darkness. As we pulled away from the hospital parking lot, a sudden flash of lightning lit up the sky, illuminating her face in stark clarity. For a moment, she looked almost serene, as if the storm outside would tame the tempest within. But the moment shattered as quickly. As it came, Lilith's phone buzzed again, breaking through the cocoon we had formed. With one glance, the light in her eyes dimmed. It's my mother, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She wants to know how I'm doing. The despair on her face was infectious. Answer her, I urged, determined to help bridge the widening chasm between Lila and her own family, which had grown deeper with pain over the years. Now, can I say? Hey, everything is terrible. Now I'm about to see a ghost of my past? Her eyes glazed over, flashes of panic mixing in with grief. We sat in the silence that followed, the tension thick and palpable, the storm outside a mere reflection of the turmoil brewing between us. Then, I turned to her, voicing the question that had been nagging at the edges of my thoughts. What if you never found out who Greg is to you? Is there a part of you that feels safe leaving that mystery unsolved? She hesitated, and there it was, that flicker of vulnerability again. No, I think I have to face this, even if it tears me apart. It's a part of me I can't ignore, and running away will not change that. The rain lessened slightly, drumming softly against the car's roof, and I knew we were edging ever closer to a moment that could rewrite Lilith's story, a revelation ready to shake her existence. In that moment, hope surged through me again, mingled with fear of what lay ahead. Then let's go to him, Lila. We're almost there. But just as we neared the meeting location, my phone buzzed with a notification, an unexpected urgency seizing my heart. The messages came one after another from an unknown number. Lila, wait, I said hesitantly, eyes darting to the screen. I think we're about to uncover something bigger than just Greg and your past. What is it? She replied, her voice thin, apprehension tightening her throat. They know you're meeting him, Lila. Be careful, that's all they write. It's bigger than you think. Lilith's face drained of color, the reality crashing down around us like the violent storm outside. With that, the shadows deepened, and so too did the weight of the unknown, hanging heavier than the rain pressing against the windows. The cliff was looming ahead, and I could feel us tipping dangerously close to the edge. The tension inside the car thickened as Lila absorbed the chilling message. Her eyes darted from the phone to the windshield, where the lingering raindrops traced paths like the worries spiraling through her mind. Who are they? How do they know about Greg? The questions tumbled out, a frantic mix of fear and confusion. I don't know. But we need to be cautious, I said, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. The shadows cast by the storm felt closer now, as if they were listeners to our conversation, hungry for our defeat. We should think this through. Lilith's breath quickened, a storm inside her igniting beneath the surface. What if they know something I don't? What if Greg is part of all this? Her voice trembled, each syllable reverberating with both anger and dread. I reached out to her, brushing my fingertips against her arm, a small gesture of solidarity, reminding her she wasn't alone in this tempest. We won't let fear dictate our decisions, Lila. We owe it to ourselves to find out the truth, whatever that may be. The rain began to taper off, the once pounding rhythm softening into a gentle murmur. It felt both ethereal and horrifying, as if nature acknowledged the struggle we faced. Lila inhaled slowly, grounding herself, and for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of her old self, the girl who had faced her demons head-on, the girl who chased light even in utter darkness. Why would someone send that? She murmured more to herself than to me. Do they want to protect me? Or are they trying to threaten me? Her forehead crinkled in contemplation, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind. Let's not jump to conclusions, I replied, trying to anchor her anxiety. Could be a warning, but it could also be someone who cares or wants to help. There may be layers to this we don't understand yet. Lila turned to me then, her gaze steady. And what if it's not? The tremor returned to her voice, each word cloaked in unwarranted despair. What if it's just more manipulation? I can't keep facing those who want to control my life. I knew the weight of such uncertainty. It was a gnawing fear I couldn't dispel with mere words, but I wanted to be a beacon for her in this stormy night. Then he'll be right beside you, Lila, no matter what. The shadows stretched longer as we arrived at the address Greg had sent us. Just as I parked, the rain halted completely, surrendering the air to an eerie calmness that felt like the eye of a storm. It was a moment where the world held its breath, waiting for the chaos to resume. Do you want to go in? I asked, peering at her. We can turn back. It wouldn't be the worst thing. Her eyes narrowed, reflecting the complexities of her heart, a maze of fear and determination. If I walk away now, will I regret it later? She said, her voice low, heavy with uncertainty. The shadows around us danced, as silence filled the car, a pause pregnant with tension and possibility. And no matter what happens, Lila, this journey is yours. You're the one holding the reins here. If you feel like you need to go back, I'll support you. I hoped she could hear the heart behind my words, the truth woven through the fabric of our shared experiences. With a deep breath, she squared her shoulders, steeling herself. I don't know what's going to happen when we go inside, but I need to face my past. I have to know who Greg really is, and what part he plays in all this. Then let's do this together, I said, my voice steady. We stepped out of the car, the world around us free from the storm, the air now heavy with an unspoken weight of what lay ahead. Each step toward the door felt monumental, our hearts pounding in synchrony. As we reached the threshold, Lilith's phone buzzed in her pocket again, a stark reminder that we were not alone in this. Without missing a beat, she pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Her face blanched. It's my mother again, she said, the panic in her voice slicing through the atmosphere. Just ignore it for now, I urged, reluctant to let anything else weigh her down. You can call her later. Right now, we need to focus. Lila nodded, but the moment of decisiveness felt fragile like glass on the cusp of shattering. The door loomed in front of us, both a threshold and a barrier. Beneath its weathered surface was a future we could scarcely grasp. That as she reached for the knob, the door swung open abruptly from the inside with a creak that echoed into the stillness. There stood Greg, his expression inscrutable, the dim light casting shadows across his face. Next to him was a woman I had never seen before, her presence exuding an aura that felt at once familiar and foreboding. Lila, I'm glad you came, Greg said, his voice laced with a mix of relief and apprehension. There's something you need to understand, and it's more complicated than you think. And just like that, the tremors of tension rocketed through the air, a new storm stirring just beneath our feet as the unexpected woman shifted slightly, catching Lilith's eye. The moment froze in time, a palpable electricity dancing among us, whispering of secrets yet to be unveiled and consequences that could shake the foundation of everything Lila thought she knew. A sudden realization gripped me, and I turned to Lila, who was staring at the woman with wide eyes, her world about to fracture once more. The air was thick with the weight of unspoken histories as we stood in the doorway, the dim light spilling from within contrasting sharply with the shivering twilight outside. Greg's words hung between us, a fragile bridge across an expanse of uncertainty. I tried to catch a glimmer of understanding in Lilith's eyes, but what I found instead was a torrent of emotions: fear, confusion, and an undeniable flicker of yearning. "Who are you?" Lilith's voice broke through the silence, her words veiled with a trembling authority as she addressed the unfamiliar woman beside Greg. With raven hair cascading around her shoulders and an intensity in her gaze that threatened to draw us all in deeper, there was something about her that felt both alluring and dangerous. "Lila, please," Greg began, his eyes darting between the two women, his urgency palpable. "And oh," she cut him off, her resolve hardening. "I deserve to know. Why are you here? Why did you bring her?" The woman stepped forward, her expression softening. "My name is Lena," she said, her tone a delicate balance of caution and sincerity. "I've been looking out for you, Lila. You've been in more danger than you realize, that no one asked for your help." Lila snapped, her voice sharp as glass, pushing against the tidal wave of knowledge that bit at the edges of her consciousness. "Maybe not," Lena replied, unfazed by Lilith's anger. "But sometimes the people you don't want to hear from are the ones who come with the most important truths. Secrets can fester, Lila, and they have consequences." The word secrets felt like a heavy stone thrown into still water. It rippled through Lila, deepening the shadows etched on her face. I couldn't miss the way her hands tensed at her sides, gripping the fabric of her jeans as if she could weave her strength through every fiber. "Greg has had to make difficult choices," Lena continued, her eyes steady on Lila. "Choices that have put him and you right in the crosshairs of a dangerous game. You think you've faced fears before. You have yet to see what lurks in the dark. But it's not too late to change the course of this." Lilith's breathing quickened, panic prickling at the edges of her mind. "What do you mean? What game? Who's hunting me?" Her voice now a whisper, as if the act of saying it might summon something even more monstrous. Greg stepped forward, his hand raised as if he might touch her, to console her fears. "Lila, please listen. Lena knows things I have kept from you, things I didn't know how to explain without putting you in danger. But I won't let anything happen to you. I swear. And why should I trust either of you?" Her gaze darted between them, betrayal hovering beneath the surface of every word. "You're both hiding something, and I refuse to be a pawn in your game." I end that charged moment. I searched for words to anchor Lila, to remind her that trust was sometimes a slow flame, forged in the crucible of mutual vulnerability. But as I opened my mouth, Lena spoke again, her voice steady yet laced with an authority that captivated us all. "Because what you might uncover about Greg's past has the power to change everything you think you know about yourself. Lila, your journey has always been tied to his choices. Trust isn't just a gift. Sometimes, it's a necessity. For both of you." The weight of her declaration hung there, the air thickening as Lilith's mind raced to connect the dots, a puzzle she felt she might never solve. A flicker of hope dared to surface, igniting a glimmer in her eyes as she wrestled with Lena's words. "What do you mean?" Her voice barely eked out the question, the desperate longing for clarity pulling at her. "It's about your family, Lila," Greg interjected, bracing himself as if each word might fracture what remained of his resolve. "And the truth about your mother and your past." Lilith's breath caught in her throat. "What do you know about my mother?" Her heart thrummed against her ribcage. A desperate rhythm echoed in her wide eyes. "More than you think." The solemnity in Greg's voice sent shivers through the room, resonating deep within Lila, before she could push forward with another question. The phone in her pocket buzzed fiercely, and this time, a tidal wave of dread washed over her. She pulled it out, staring at the screen where her mother's name loomed large. "An unsolved mystery primed to explode. It can't be," she whispered, her fingers trembling as they hovered above the screen, the tension thickening around us once more. "Lila, don't answer it," I urged, sensing the crescendo of emotions at our feet ready to spill over. But she was already caught in the pull of that name, veering into the unknown. But before she could choose, the door swung open wider, drawing our attention away from her phone. Just beyond the threshold, a shadow loomed, a figure draped in darkness, stepping into the dim light. Lila, the figure spoke, voice low and dangerous, completely shattering the fragile web of hope and trust we'd woven in the previous moments. The world around us felt like it paused, everyone breathless for what came next. A new fear smothered the last flicker of hope, leaving us all standing at the precipice of a revelation that had the power to reshape everything we believed about love, loyalty, and the dark truths lurking in the corners of our lives. Lila's heart raced, caught between the chilling familiarity of her mother's name and the eerie apparition that now stood before us. The figure stepped closer, flickering in and out of the sparse light, revealing piercing eyes that glinted with a predatory instinct. It sent shudders rippling through me, and I could feel Lila stiffen beside me, her body suddenly a rigid line of uncertainty and conflicted emotions. "Who are you?" Lila demanded, her voice now steady but threaded with an undercurrent of fear. The earlier bravado faded as the reality of the moment sunk in, coiling tighter around her gut like a snake ready to strike. "Someone who's been searching for you," the figure responded, voice smooth yet laced with a sinister edge. "Your mother is in trouble, Lila, and it's time you know the truth." Greg instinctively moved in front of Lila, a protective barrier against the unknown, but the figure acknowledged him with a dismissive smirk. "You can't shield her from this anymore, Greg. It's time to let her choose for herself." Lila's breath quivered, caught somewhere between the allure of what might be known and the fear of what that knowledge might unleash. "You don't know anything," she shot back, her fight igniting in the wake of panic. "And why should I believe you?" The figure's lips curled into a smile, both haunting and pitying. "Because your life is about to change in ways you cannot fathom yet. Because the secrets Greg tried to shield you from are now coming to claim you." "What secrets?" she demanded, her voice rising, both desperate and defiant. "Your mother's past," the figure continued, each word landing like a heavy stone against Lila's chest. "Dark ties, dangerous alliances, things she never wanted you to uncover." "Stop," Greg's voice rang out, urgent and strident. "This isn't the way, you don't have to." But the figure swept a hand dismissively, eyes never leaving Lila's. "You deserve to know, Lila. If you don't uncover this for yourself, more lives will be at stake than just yours." Greg's face grew pale, panic igniting behind his eyes while Lena remained silent, a thoughtful intensity shifting across her features. It was evident she had her own battles against the tides of the past crashing against us now. "Lila, please," Greg implored, the tremor in his voice cutting through the swirling chaos. "You deserve to know, maybe just not in this way. Whatever this person is claiming, there are ways to learn the truth without drowning in fear." A shudder ran through Lila as she steeled herself against the figure's penetrating gaze. She wasn't ready to back down. "Then let them speak. If my mother's life is tied to this, then I need to hear it." Now, with a flourish, the shadowy figure moved as if conjuring shadows around us, their presence heavier, threatening to swallow the room in darkness. "Your mother is in danger, Lila, and she is hiding. But she isn't alone. Her past continues to haunt you, intertwined with forces you cannot even imagine." "What do you mean?" she whispered, vulnerable in the face of these revelations, her defenses faltering. "Someone is watching. Someone who wants to use what your mother carried within her, the very thing she tried to protect you from. There's a hidden legacy, a power buried deep. You are the keys, the truth twisted in the air." The dim light faltered, shadows reaching out as if alive. My pulse quickened in response to Lila's shifting expression, struggling with the implications of her newfound reality. The stakes had been raised higher than any of us had anticipated. "No, this can't be," she uttered, eyes wide with disbelief. "My mother isn't like that." "Then why did she leave? Why did she vanish?" The figure pressed forward, challenging her, unraveling her certainties. "You forgot the most important lesson. The past never truly fades. It only hides, waiting for the right moment to strike. A sudden tremor passed through the air, and Lila turned, her resolve wavering. I longed to reach out, to ground her, but the weight of the revelations festered between us. I couldn't find my voice, my thoughts churning in a sea of uncertainty. Lila, don't listen, Greg cautioned, desperation filling his words. We can figure this out together. We can protect you. But Lila stood in defiance, anchoring herself in the destabilizing tides. No, I won't let anyone dictate my choices anymore. As her words dissolved into silence, a piercing ring from her phone shattered the atmosphere. Once again, her mother's name called out, echoing in the strained air as if summoning her from the depths. The shadows shifted, almost expectant, as if they understood the gravity beneath that name. Lila hesitated, the phone vibrating against her palm with ruthless insistence. The moment felt suspended, stretching as each heartbeat paled against the tension clasping us all. And then her finger hovered above the screen, the weight of her decision threatening to crush her. Lila, I whispered, but the words felt lost in the mounting darkness swirling around us, the reality of what awaited her lying just beyond that call. In that instant, I feared not just for her future but for the very essence of who she was and what she was destined to uncover. With the figure watching intently and the shadows closing in, Lila finally swiped to answer. The air thickened with unspoken dread, every breath echoing the fragility of choice. Mom? She breathed, her voice barely a whisper, as the room hummed with an unbearable stillness before the storm. The response on the other end ignited an emotional fracture that threatened to consume us all and utterly transform the course of our lives from this moment forward. As Lila's voice broke the silence, the tension in the room deepened. The faint sound of her mother's voice trickled through the warm timbre that used to lull her into sleep, now strained and laced with urgency. Lila, sweetheart, you have to listen to me. The voice pleaded, each word weighted with an unshakable fragility. Mom, where are you? What's happening? Lila's question poured from her lips, desperation clawing at her throat. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and I felt my chest tighten with her fear and longing. From across the room, the figure's expression darkened. Listen carefully, Lila. They are coming, and you're running out of time. Oh, Greg interjected, but Lila waved him away, her focus now entirely on the voice that was both familiar and distant. Lila, I need you to be strong. Trust no one but yourself. The shadows, they know you're awake. They will try to get to you through me, through what I kept hidden. Each word from her mother felt like a shard of glass finding its way into Lila's heart, sharp, piercing, and impossible to ignore. Shadows? What shadows? What are you talking about? Lila pressed, frantic now, her knuckles white as she gripped the phone. Your mother has entangled herself in something dark. Lila, the figure stated with an almost mocking intonation. Did you really think you could live a normal life? Did she not prepare you for the truth? Stop it, Lila shouted, voice rising. Her eyes blazed with anger, yet I could see the cracks forming as uncertainty threatened to erode her brave facade. Lila, please, her mother pleaded, but the connection crackled, her voice warbling under the strain. You must remember I've always protected you. There are things inside you, things that make you more than ordinary. You are a burst of static interrupted, and I could see the anguish ripple through Lila's body as she strained to hear beyond the chaos. Suddenly, the call disconnected with a sharp beep. Lila cursed under her breath, the fragments of the conversation swirling through her like a tempest, neck muscles taut with anguish and fight. Are you all right? I murmured, stepping closer, but she held up her hand, the flicker of composure unraveling. Do you see? She said, her voice trembling with both fear and a pulse of defiance. This isn't just about me. It's about my mom. I can feel it. Whatever secret she kept is alive, and it's hunting us down. Lila, listen to me, Greg said, his tone barely holding back panic. We can leave. We can just go. It'll protect you from this, I swear. His earnest plea hung between us, weighed down by the disquiet in Lila's heart. But Lilith's resolve hardened. And abandon her? No, I won't let that happen. If my mother is in danger, I need to help her. Before anyone could voice their concerns, Lila turned on her heel, determination lighting a fire in her eyes, igniting the path to an undiscovered truth they all seemed hesitant to embrace. We have to find out the whole story. Now as we stepped outside, the cool night air felt like an invigorating breath after being submerged in fear. Yet reality loomed like a dense fog on the horizon. Lilith's eyes searched for answers in the stars, reflecting pools of strength and vulnerability. Where do we even start? I ventured, sensing the weight of our choices compressing against the night. We need to go to the old house, she decided abruptly. It's where she last lived. There are probably things there that can help us understand what's going on now. Greg's protest erupted. That place hasn't been touched in years, Lila. Dangerous things can lurk there, then we face it together. That's all that matters right now. Lilith's gaze turned fierce, the sparks of hope flickering amidst the gloom like a candle against impending shadows. We drove in tense silence, the streets blurring into a mix of shadows and light. Lila clutched the phone tightly in her palm, her breath steadying as we inched closer to the past she longed to uncover. However, the palpable weight of uncertainty pressed against us, shadows bending and stretching in the periphery as if inviting us into their depths. The atmosphere shifted, electric with potential, making every moment feel like an environment on the brink of collapse as we finally arrived at the decrepit house. It loomed like a ghost of forgotten memories. I glanced over at Lila, who felt like an epicenter of fragile courage. Whatever we find in there, no matter how hard it is, we will face it together. I promised, uncertainty tangled in my own heart like ivy wrapped around an old oak. And as she stepped forward, the creaking door groaned in acknowledgement, and I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. It was not the wind. Something was waiting for us inside, something that recognized Lila and was all too eager for her return. With every step closer to the threshold, her resolution surged while an ominous premonition tangled in the air. Just as Lila raised her hand to push the door, a sudden flash illuminated the darkness, a figure leaping from the shadows before us. Lila! No! I shouted, but it was too late. In that fraction of an instant, something shifted, and a secret long-buried threatened to erupt, ready to redefine everything we thought we knew. As the figure lunged forward, the world around us unraveled. I dove to pull Lila back but was met with the unexpected rush of a familiar figure, one my heart never believed I would see again, her mother. Lila! Get away from him! She screamed, stepping between us and the shadows that hung heavily around us. My heart raced as confusion swept over me. After all this time, her mother was here, alive yet looking more fragile than Lila had remembered. Mom? Lila whispered, disbelief and fear resting her voice. Do you trust me? Her mother urged, eyes desperate. You need to come with me now. There's no time to explain. Before Lila could respond, Greg stepped forward, his expression imploring. You need to listen to her, Lila. This is about more than you realize. I don't know what you're mixed up in. Lila bit back, frustration boiling beneath the surface. But you can't just appear out of nowhere and expect me to believe you, to keep you safe, her mother exclaimed, her voice cracking under the weight of her urgency. They're coming for you. I felt the panic rising, a quickened pulse in the air thick with secrets long buried. What does that even mean? I pressed, scanning the gathering darkness that felt far too alive. What's happened? There was no answer. Her mother turned back to Lila, anguish painted across her features. You have to come with me, Lila. I've tried to protect you from this world, but it won't let go. Not while you're still connected to it. What are you talking about? Lilith's voice trembled with anger and fear. This is my life, you can't just run from it. You left me without explanation. You've left me to sift through lies and layers of shadows. I thought it was safe, her mother replied, glancing back at the swelling darkness. I thought I could protect you from your own legacy. But they know you're awake now, and they'll stop at nothing to find you. Lila took a step back, the shadows around us pulsating with hidden menaces. What legacy? What do you mean? Her pulse quickened, each word unraveling the threads of her life. What are you hiding? Everything, her mother said, eyes flashing with intensity. It's time you discover your truth, Lila. You are so much more than you know. The powers within you, those ancestral ties, they've been dormant, but they're awakening. And with those words, I felt the very air shift, the room swelling with vibrant energy, the depths of darkness teetering an edge as if life itself would unfurl a whole new chapter. Then why all the secrecy? Why not tell me? Why keep me in the dark? There are forces that aren't just threats. They're monsters wearing masks, Lila. Your mother thought she could shield you, but instead, it may have made it worse. Before anything else could be said, the wind rushed past, a sudden chill sweeping through us, snuffing out our illusions of safety. We need to leave. Now, her mother said urgently, glancing back toward the street. Something clanged from within the house, and panic surged through me. They're coming, I shouted, instinctively pulling Lila closer, ready to shield her at all costs. No, we have to confront this, Lila said, shaking off my grip. If what you say is true, Mom, then I'm not afraid of whatever haunts our past. But it's not just your past. It's mine too, her mother protested, but Lilith's resolve remained unyielded. I have to know for myself. I felt the tremors of her determination, and apprehension coiled inside me. As shadows danced closer, whispering secrets long forgotten, I murmured, whatever we find, we'll face it together. The exchange between Lila and her mother felt like a Tethera bridge pulled tight across life's abyss. But even as we stood united, the air crackled with static electricity, anticipation hanging heavy, cloaking the truths we had yet to uncover. With a deep breath, I said, lead the way. Lila stepped through the door into the darkness, her mother at her side, with me following closely behind. Each step we took echoed in chambers of uncertainty, shadows whispering their Aravala saga of old writing itself anew through the entwined legacies of love, fear, and unknowable power. As we delved deeper, a sense of something significant flared to life within Lilith's chest, a promise that the tangled fate awaiting us would reshape our stories forever. An echo of laughter breached the shadows, mingling with Lilith's unfaltering spirit. And there, amidst the darkness closing in, I found something I hadn't expected, an unquenchable flicker of hope threading its way through our shared truth. In the end, it was love that anchored us, pushing aside the spirits of our past, offering us a path toward a future we would forge together. With one final breath, I whispered, you are never alone. We'll unravel this together. And in the heart of the storm we embraced, even while turbulent winds raged, I knew our journey was merely beginning. For within our shared spaces, a legacy awaited, one bridged with resilience and fueled by unbreakable bonds. And beneath the tumult of uncertainty, we emerged ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Because even in darkness, the dawn awaited.